seizes him.
We must remember what ruthless and utter destruction our own species has wrought, not only upon animals, but upon its inferior races. The Tasmanians, in spite of their human likeness, were entirely swept out of existence in a war of extermination waged by European immigrants. Are we such apostles of mercy as to complain if the Martians war in the same spirit?
So the Martian invasion was a cautionary tale in the spirit of what goes around, comes around. The idea of intelligent beings on Mars was taken seriously by many people back then, including H.G. Wells.
He'd written about Mars a couple of times earlier and summarizing the knowledge. But in addition, this was a time period when a great many people in England are interested in visitors from outer space, the possibility of visitors from outer space.
In 1877, the Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli saw what he took to be waterways on Mars. He called them canali, which is Italian for channels. The word was mistranslated, however, to read canals.
When people began to see these illusionary lines, then this is in a period of time when all over the world people were building canals and great works of irrigation. And so it was an easy next step to say, well, these great canals were to save that Martian world. So again, imagination took over and built much of that structure. But nevertheless, that was the popular scientific understanding at the time H.G. Wells wrote.
And long after that time, Wells's story of invading Martians still had the power to shock. On the night of October 30th, 1938, several million American radio listeners were tuned to CBS when the Halloween broadcast of the Mercury Theater of the Air came on. Many who tuned in a little late missed the introduction and may have caught this.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Professor Morse of Macmillan University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The story unfolded in the form of a series of special radio bulletins. Thousands believed they were hearing live news. Radio actors provided them with details of ultimate disaster.
New Jersey. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m. a huge flaming object fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton.
Woking had been replaced by Grover's Mill, London by New York, but the basic plot was the same.
The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state through its center. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Highways are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and Army reserves are unable to control the mad flight.
As the radio conjured up images of panic in the minds of listeners, some listeners actually did panic and fled.
The enemy is now in sight above the Palisades. 5 great machines. First one is crossing the river. I can see it from here, wading the Hudson like a man wading through a brook.
To X2L calling CQ. Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone?
Howard Koch remembers that night, as well he should. He wrote the script, did it in a 6-day and night marathon, then got a full night's sleep. The next morning, as he walked down 72nd Street to get a haircut, he learned what he and his producer had done.
You see, I heard war, panic, so on. And I went into the barber shop and I said, are we at war or something? And he laughed and he held up a newspaper with a headline, Martian Broadcast Panics Nation. Well, that was one of the strangest moments in my life.
But the real heat was on a very young and beleaguered producer, whose name happened to be Wells also. Orson Welles.
It came rather as a great surprise to us that a story, a fine H.G. Wells classic fantasy, the original for so many succeeding comic strips and adventure stories and novels, about a mythical invasion by monsters from the planet Mars should have had so profound an effect upon radio listeners.
Howard Koch went on to write screenplays for such movie greats as Casablanca. But he has never forgotten Halloween 1938. Perhaps War of the Worlds will always strike a chord. In 1943, a young British soldier on his way to the front found Wells's creation still powerfully appropriate.
I was on the mainline station, and there, selling in hardcover, was H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds, with the deadly machines of the Martians striding across the cover, searchlights waving, even as that night they waved over London. Ah, God! This was a topical novel, you know. It was the most topical novel you could read at that time. And then it had been written, what? It was 50 years old then.
Menacing all mankind and every creature on earth comes the War of the Worlds.
In 1953, Hollywood tried its hand at adapting War of the Worlds. The movie unveiled startling new special effects. The adaptation might have caused poor H.G. to groan in his grave. The story was given a kind of religious overlay and updated once again. The Martians had learned to fly. The narrator got a name and a love interest.
Oh, Uncle Matthew, this is Dr. Clayton Forrester. My uncle, Dr. Matthew Collins, pastor of the community church.
Well...
The curate was a minister who, trying to communicate, became a martyr. It conveniently left his niece to get trapped with the narrator in the house caved in by the new arrival. The Martians did come to the same end as in the book. Almost.
We were all praying for a miracle.
It's just that this time, it was an act of God. Mars, the red planet. It still intrigues us. Of course, we can relax about a Martian invasion. We've been taking close-up pictures of Mars since 1965, and we haven't spotted a launching pad yet. In the last 3 decades, Mars has been extensively studied by NASA spacecraft. From Mariner 9 in 1971 to the Viking spacecraft in 1975, a whole new picture of the planet began to unfold. Gigantic canyons, monstrous volcanoes, even small channels might have been caused by rain.
So the possibility then existed that sometime in the ancient past on Mars, there may have been liquid water on the surface. So that then opened the possibility that there may once have been life, and if there was once life, maybe it was preserved in some places.
Today, it's agreed there is no intelligent life on Mars. But if not on Mars, somewhere else. For several years, NASA operated a program called SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, with massive radio telescopes scanning deep space frequencies in hopes of finding manufactured signals. Now private money continues the effort. But what would those intelligences be like if we found them? Or if they found us? Science fiction people have imagined some pretty wild alternatives. Fascination with the idea of extraterrestrial life persists. Aliens have been a popular, if not always deadly serious theme in movies and television, and they have featured some of the most popular characters of all time.
Captain, the Horde is a remarkably intelligent and sensitive creature.
Like the more or less friendly Vulcan who arrived aboard Star Trek back in the 1960s.
I suspect you're becoming more and more human all the time.
Captain, I see no